He's going to pull ahead. The TwinSpires expert picks were all optimistic.
You got the best speed rating in the field. Don't fail me now.
Man, I love this horse's name.
And from far behind, here comes Frank. It's neck and neck. Frank is winning. Frank wins!
Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires, the official betting partner of the Kentucky Derby. Get your money back if your horse finishes second or third in eligible races.
Welcome back to the TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully, Darin Zoccali, and Nick Tammaro. It's kind of a grand jury, if you will. Terrible joke.
Wow.
And we are we're going to be talking all things Churchill Downs. It is Kentucky Derby week, and we are going to close out with our Oaks and Derby picks, but we are going to talk mainly the undercard for our best bets and fades. And Nick, joining us live from Houston, I will let you start things off. What is your best bet of the week at Churchill Downs?
So, yeah, great to join you guys. Very excited about Derby week, of course. And, you know, I went through this Derby card and it's taken me, I think I'm just finally finished. It's taken me quite some time, a tremendous couple of days of racing. And I've yet to really get started on the Oaks card in earnest. But one of the horses I'm really looking forward to betting the most is Hoist the Gold in the Churchill Downs race 10 on Saturday afternoon. I know he's coming back from a trip over to Saudi, and some are a little hesitant to take horses like this. But Hoist the Gold is generally been at his best at Churchill. He ran very well in this race last year, went second to eventual Horse of the Year, Cody's Wish. And I think he drew ideally on the outside. There's also been something about this horse when John Velasquez is on him. I know he was on board in the Saudi Cup, but when he's been at his best, Johnny V's been on. He also looks like the main speed to me on the outside, and he feels like a horse that I could kind of see myself maybe centering some of my multi-race action around on the back half of the Saturday card with so many deep and competitive races around it. I'm going to get a little bit bullish with Hoist the Gold. He's my best bet.
All right. Well, I'll let James go next because
yeah, well, I'm going to go right into the face of that, Nick. I like Bo Cruz, number 3, Bo Cruz, 10-1 in the same race, the Churchill Downs Sprint. And I really loved Bo Cruz's allowance win last year. They ran him first time out at 6 furlongs, or I guess it was his maiden win. Or no, it was allowance. He ran him first time out at 6 furlongs. He broke his maiden going 2 turns at Fairgrounds, and he came to Churchill Downs on Derby Day last year, race 13 after the Derby, and caught a pretty nice field, I thought, and really just ran a terrific race that day, won by 3 lengths. Off of those efforts, Al Stahl kept him at 2 turns. His last start last year came in July. I don't know what happened that day, but he ran last. He went on the shelf for the rest of the year. Brought him back at 1.70 at Fairgrounds. He got an inside trip. It wasn't the cleanest trip, and wound up a close third. Cut him back to 7 furlongs. I think that's strictly his future. Way better, going to be way better at this 7 furlong 1-turn distance than he is at a 1-turn mile. Cut him back last time in this Commonwealth, this Grade 3 Commonwealth. He trained Fordley in advance of it. Bo Cruz did. And I just thought this was a really sharp, encouraging performance. I respect definitely Hoist the Gold and some other ones in here. But, you know, Hoist the Gold to me, he's been doing a lot of traveling, and now he's getting back to a 1-turn distance. And I also really just think he runs a little bit better at Keeneland than he does anywhere else. But I think Bo Cruz loves Churchill Strip. I think he's got a real future in 1-turn races. And I'm going to take him off that encouraging win in the Grade 3 Commonwealth at Keeneland.
I like that pick. That's actually my pick in this race, and I'm going to be fading the morning line favorite in this race as well, which I'll talk about in our next segment. But Darin, I'll turn it over to you. What is your best bet this week?
Right before that race, the American Turf, I have a price play with number 11, Cagino, here for trainer Shug McGahee. I liked his last race. I know he's gotten narrowly defeated each of the last couple, but he was extremely wide at different points of the race last time out, made an early move to the front, and was in just this battle with Neat all the way down to the wire. This is the kind of race that I really think can springboard a horse forward. They're going to have a change of equipment here and put the blinkers on. You're going to see coming down to the wire, he's just going to get nailed right on the wire by Neat up the inside. So maybe the blinkers going on, they think will get the horse a little bit more focused. Maybe they attribute that to the reason for the narrow losses in each of the last couple of starts. Javier Castellano obviously gets along extremely well with the horse. He's never run a bad race, looks to be an improving sort. The price is going to be right. I know he's facing a lot of the similar horse that he's been running against, so it's kind of a bold stance, but that's what Derby weekend is all about, and I don't think we've seen the best of this horse yet. So Cugino off a narrow loss to turn the tables on Neat and others 10-1 in the American Turf.
All right. Yeah, I had Neat in the Transylvania. Probably have to stick with Neat in this spot, but I like your angle here, adding the blinkers as well. And I'm going to go with number 7, Houday at 10-1 in the Pat Day Mile. This is a grade 2 event, and this is a Liam's Map 3-year-old who was unbeaten in his first 4 starts. And then last out, he cut back to 7 furlongs in the Lafayette at Keeneland and closed late to finish second. He's going back to a mile here, and his one win from that distance was at Churchill Downs. His trainer is a 24% winner, going from a sprint to a route, and a 24% winner second off the layoff, picking up Brian Hernandez here, who's really good at route distances. And I like the price at 10-1, so I'm jumping on that Bengals bandwagon with Houday. There it is. There's the card, 10-1.
It's Ohio bred, right?
Ohio bred, don't hold me to it. I have to go back and look at I've been looking at too many things today on this Churchill program because we've got 14 races. So I can't remember, but you're probably right there.
Yeah, he's an Ohio bred for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's move on to the horses we're fading at a short price. So let's see, who do I want to go with here? I'll go with James.
Okay, I am going to fade. On Friday, they run this grade 2 Edgewood for 3-year-old fillies going a mile 16th on turf. We've had 5 Breeders' Cup juvenile fillies turf winners come back in this race. 3 of them ran, at least 2 of them ran twice before the race and won it. The other one came back and had a start, and then she in her second start back to Ashland, Stephanie's kid, won it. Hard to justify is my best fade, number 9, 2-1 in the Edgewood. She's coming off a win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf, and this race has proven an extremely difficult spot for these juvenile fillies turf runners to come back. Runners with recency edge have really done well, always do well in this race. We've had 2 horses try from this Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf try to win this race. 2018 newspaper of record that won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf at Churchill by 6+ lengths. Went off 1-5 and ran lengths at second. And then 2020, Aunt Pearl tried it off of the bench and ran 5th at 1-5. So we've had a pair of odds-on 1-5 favorites go for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf to the Edgewood. It's proven too difficult for them. I think hard to justify us up against it in this spot against Bushu and others with a recency edge. And I will fade her in all my multi-race bets on Friday in the Edgewood Stakes.
All right, and Darin, I'll go with you next. Who is your fade this week?
My fade comes in the same race as your best bet, Ashley, right to the post of the outside. Number 8, Top Connor, who debuted in fine form at Gulfstream Park, winning with a nice trip in the one-turn mile, showing an ability to rate off the pace. But I think this is a horse that does have plenty of early tactical speed in a race that seems to have quite a bit of runners that want to be placed forward here. This horse went from that maiden win right into the Bluegrass Stakes, set a rather fast pace with just a touch, pushing the horse along, and came up empty, obviously, in the stretch. I think he's going to be overbet off that performance, the cutback. This is the type of horse for Chad Brown that people are going to flock to. And with only 2 lifetime starts, I think you can find a horse with a bit more seasoning here, a horse that probably is going to work out a trip from further off the pace into a pace that I think is going to be pretty hot and contentious. And my other concern here is that the horse ran on Lasix upon debut. The Lasix came off as it is required for the Bluegrass, and the horse did not offer the same punch. Obviously, there were some other factors at play, the fast pace of being pushed along by a quality animal. But there's enough of an angle here, or a couple of angles, that I could take a stab against this horse. So for me, I'm going to fade Top Connor and what I think is a pretty contentious edition of the Pat Day Mile, Ashley.
I've got to ask you, Darin. Just hearing you say that, though, makes me think, is he a fan of Sierra Leone and Just a Touch in the Derby? Because I've got the Bluegrass rated as the absolute best final prep race for me. I thought those two horses are going to run well in the Kentucky Derby itself. And, you might be right about Top Connor. Everything you said made sense. But, I mean, to me, he's coming out of a really good race.
Coming out of a really good race, I don't disagree at all. But I think just because you're coming out of a really good race doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be good. That's kind of the approach I'm taking. I mean, he was beaten 8 lengths in the race. I know he showed good speed, and I'm not saying he's not a quality individual. I just think based on everything you just said, the fact that it's Chad Brown, the race is coming out of, I don't think his win odds are going to reflect his true chance of winning. I think he's going to be overbet and underlay on the tote board.
And the outside post, a little bit of concern, I think, too. Well, Nick, I think we're on the same fade, Nick, but I'll let you talk about it first. Who are you fading at a short price?
Yeah, same race that my best bet comes in with Hoist the Gold. I'm going to fade the 6 Zozos, and I don't know necessarily if Zozos is going to end up a particularly strong favorite. I did kind of flirt with the idea of using Top Connor. He scares me a little bit, so I didn't want to make him the biggest fade. But I've never been a particularly big Zozos fan, in large part because he seems to find somebody to beat him when he has his biggest objectives, and he really underperformed in the 2 biggest races he ran in last year. So I'll look to go elsewhere, and if he dips below that 3-1, I'll happily exclude him from any kind of multi-race bet I make, because he's a horse that I don't really need at a short price. I don't think he's quick enough at 7 furlongs to be dangerous, and I really don't think he has much of a chance coming from off the pace. So happy to take a swing against Zozos for sure.
I agree with you. I tried to play against him last year when he was on the Derby undercard, but I was wrong on that day. But I feel like when he's gone gate to wire, he went gate to wire in the ACAC at a mile, but he got away with pretty slow fractions that day. I think he's going to get pushed with the early speed here. So I also like your same angle. He's coming off that long layoff, so I'm going to play against him. And I hope this time I'm right to play against him on the Derby undercard. Well,
Feels
Darin,
like the right move.
I hope we're right this time. Well, Darin, you got any promos for us for Derby week?
Oh, of course we do. We have the Derby Week Money Back, which got underway this past Saturday. That's going to run all week long, Tuesday through the last race on the card on Saturday. All eligible races, definition of an eligible race, at least 5 horses to get your money back for second, at least 8 horses to get your money back for third. Of course, it includes the Kentucky Oaks, the Kentucky Derby, every race, and the 2 cards on Friday and Saturday are just absolutely tremendous, with 330 horses entered over the 27 races. So, we have the $10 Kentucky Derby Week money back all week long. And a special extra promotion on Thursday. We have a leaderboard contest for Thurby. $2,500 on the line, free to enter. $10 win bet is the eligible required bet in each of the races. If your horse runs first, second, or third that you make the win bet on, you're going to get points. So watch yourself move up the leaderboard as you accrue some points and give you a little extra bankroll heading into Oaks and Derby Day. So, by all means, a couple of good promos as you would expect from your friends at TwinSpires.
And that leads us to the main event here, the Oaks and the Derby, and we're all going to give our top picks for both races. So let's start with the Oaks, and I'll go with you, Darin, who is your Oaks pick this year. I guess go ahead and give me your Oaks and Derby if you want to do that.
Sure. Yeah, we could do that. So in the Oaks, I'm going to take a stand with Power Squeeze at a price. I think this is a really good filly that really doesn't get talked about enough. When you go back and you start to watch her races and what she's looked like since she stretched out, I've been impressed with her. Her win in the cash run, she exploded in the last eighth of a mile, really leveled out nicely. Same thing at Tampa Bay. The Gulfstream Park Oaks, she's the kind of filly that she never really looks like she's under a hard hold and is just like sitting on a loaded gun. She's a type of horse that it seems like you got to keep pedaling, like riding a bike to keep it going. But she doesn't stop coming. And then when she switches leads in the stretch, as the other horses start to tire, it seems that she just kind of hits that extra gear and has more stamina. And I think going 1.8 miles is going to be right up her alley. The post obviously is a little bit of a concern, but I think she's going to be in a good spot mid-pack. I think there's enough pace early on to set things up for her. She's never done anything wrong, and she's going to be a good number. She's flying under the radar. So going to get a little bit creative here. Give Danny Centeno a shot at a Kentucky Oaks with Power Squeeze.
Let's stick with the Oaks since you had a lot to say about Power Squeeze, and I want to just stick with the race so we can really get into the analysis. So, James, who do you have in this race?
I'm going to 13, just FYI. I liked her comeback effort in the Ashland. I thought that was a solid effort. She went a little wide off of the far turn, and Leslie's Rose got the jump on her and, was coming off a couple, so she had a big recency edge. But that was a very solid runner-up effort, and she's just trained extremely well in the interim since then. She's a really good size, well-built filly, and one thing I like about Just FYI is that she's got the tactical speed, the positional ability to be sitting up there, possibly third, going into that first turn in a good spot and avoid losing ground from the outside post. So I expect a favorable trip and going to bet Just FYI to win in the Kentucky Oaks.
And Nick?
Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Just FYI as well, but I picked the 11 Ways and Means, and I was heartened to hear Darin at least, I guess, extol the form of the Gulfstream Oaks. I think Ways and Means did all the running in there. I mean, she moved early, she moved wide, the pace was solid, the pace completely cratered, and there she was to meet a fresh challenge with 3/16 to go, coming off a 6-month layoff, having never gone beyond 7 furlongs, and she really stretched Power Squeeze right to the wire. So I thought that was a huge performance. My biggest concern with her is the 1 1/8. I'm not completely convinced she wants to go 1 1/8. She is kin to Highly Motivated, who was probably at his best around 1 mile to 1 1/8 or 1 1/16. I think the way we saw Ways and Means begin her career, she might end up being at her best at 7 to 8 furlongs, but she just feels like a horse who's in the right place at the right time to me, and liable to take a big step forward in what ends up being a pretty competitive race. She's at least a horse for me coming out of a performance where I think her effort is a bit better than her running line suggests, whereas I think there are a lot of horses in this race whose most recent efforts aren't quite as good as their running line suggest, no more so than Leslie's Rose, who had a great trip at Keeneland to win the Ashland, and I'd be much more inclined to take Just FYI out of there. So it's going to be a lot of 5, 11, and 13 for me in the Oaks to close things out, because I'll happily take a little bit of a stand against Tarifa as well, who I think is just, as far as how she's run consistently, she's had a lot of things go her way, and this is a race with 14 horses and an expected strong pace where nothing really is going to go her way at that level.
Right, Tarifa's faced pretty small field, so that was another reason I'm kind of backing off of her. And her one race at Churchill, she didn't really show up. But Ways and Means, you brought up the distance, a little bit of a question mark. I keep feeling a little bit afraid. What are we going to get with her? Maybe she does handle it. I'm still going to try to beat her, and I'm going Just FYI as well. Just like James has a win on an off track as well, which I think we might get some rain. I don't know, Doppler Darin, what do you have in the forecast right now for Oaks, by the way?
Chance of thunderstorms at various points of the day. Looks like maybe about 0.3 of an inch of rain they're calling for. But, I mean, listen, we're in Kentucky, and we all know that forecast can change. Forget about day to day, minute to minute. So don't lock in anything yet. Go back, revisit on Thursday, and take a look at what the weather looks like before you get into any type of wet track alternative plan.
But I will say, Just FYI, like I said, has a win on both an off track and has been winning on fast track. So I'm feeling good either way, and had that very strong work at Churchill. Well, let's move on to the Kentucky Derby. And Darin, tell me again what the forecast is for Derby before we get into this race.
Derby looks good. Chance of an isolated thunderstorm, but Derby for the most part is a lot more sun than clouds, it appears. So I think we're okay.
And who are you going to go with in this race?
Speaking of sun, land of the rising sun. Japan gets their Derby with Forever Young. Listen, we're recording this Monday of Derby week, so it's hard to give a pick 5 days out. I haven't looked at the Ragozin sheets yet, although I do know that Forever Young's last 2 races actually did come up pretty quick on Ragozin. Look, what it's coming down to is this. Yes, I think this is the most talented horse that we've ever seen.
Looking forward to talking to you. This is actually Forever Young here, not Catching Freedom. And
there we go. Forever Young, I think it's the most talented horse that we've ever seen come out of the UAE Derby. You're going to hear 0 for 19 a lot with this horse. Horses that have come out of the UAE Derby have not hit the board in 19 tries. But again, think this horse could be the exception to the rule. The dam side of the pedigree is nothing but classic American pedigree. The second dam is Darling My Darling, who was a Grade 1 winner on dirt right here in the U.S. This is a race that you're about to see here in the Saudi Derby that people kind of use as a reason to almost knock this horse. I don't see it. for me, this was a horse who won a race that he should have never won, going a distance of ground that's shorter than he wants to go, chasing down legitimate American sprint speed. I think this race just bolsters the resume of Forever Young. And then when allowed to stretch out at a mile and 3/16 in the UAE Derby, he did exactly what he's supposed to do, which is get better and put away horses and pull away from horses. And the one thing that I keep coming back to is in that last furlong of the Kentucky Derby, when the majority of the field is going to be starting to stop, this guy's not going to stop. He's going to keep running as the race goes longer. Hopefully he works out a good trip. Hopefully the kickback that he receives doesn't knock him off his game too badly. I just think this is a really good racehorse. And a 10-1, I think that's pretty reflective of what his chances are of winning the race. So for me, Forever Young at 10-1 is a better price. Sierra Lone stuck inside. We'll see if he can kind of wind and weave his way through traffic. Fierceness, I don't see any way he doesn't get caught extremely wide with the speed to his inside. I know they love the draw, but I think he's going to be 4 or 5 wide into the first turn, and he's going to have to show that he could overcome adversity and win a race. So we're going to take Forever Young for Yoshito Yahagi to be the first horse to win from Japan.
You mentioned 0 for 19 in the UAE Derby, but we also have 0 for 6 with Japanese runners. But he does seem like the best we've gotten so far. And you mentioned the Ragozin sheets. That's what I've heard at the track, people referencing that number, best number on the Ragozin sheets out of this field. So.
And I'll just add to that. Derma Sotogake last year ran a really good race. Had a terrible beginning, was off like 17th, and finished 6th, beaten about 5 lengths. And if he had a better start, he probably would have finished a little bit closer. And I think this horse at this point in time is better than Derma Sotogake was.
Well, I'll go with you, Nick, because James and I are on the same wavelength with our picks, so I'll group those together. So, Nick, tell me your pick in the Derby.
Yeah, I'm admittedly a notoriously terrible Kentucky Derby handicapper, so this is obviously not my strong suit. I picked just a touch. What I try to do unsuccessfully for the most part with the Derby is kind of look at it as if it were just a regular race on a Thursday afternoon. And if that were the case, I'd be betting just a touch here with both fists, because I want horses that dealt with negative pace scenarios that are probably going to benefit from the race they just ran. And I think they'll get an awful lot out of the Bluegrass. He's a horse that clearly has a great deal of talent. Just a little bit like my pick in the Oaks, I'm slightly concerned about him getting that last part of the race. The 10th furlong could be a little problematic, but I thought he ran extremely well at Keeneland. He still has plenty of upside, obviously very good connections on his side, and I think he can get a good trip from just off the pace. And I think if this race is won by a horse that's coming from off of it, I don't think they'll be coming from that far off of it. So he felt like the one that suited my handicapping style best. I have a lot of respect for both favorites, neither of whom I'm going to take a particularly strong stand against. I think the only horse at probably a relatively short price that I would not have any interest in is Catching Freedom. He looks like a slightly faster version of Angel of Empire, and I'm not a big fan. But otherwise, I think a lot of the horses that are going to take real money offer a lot of appeal as well, including Forever Young, who I thought Darin made a very good case for as he donned his Mr. Miyagi apparel there, getting us ready for the Japanese invasion.
I will say, we just talked Ragozin numbers, but the Brisnet Prime Power actually says that Just a Touch has the highest Prime Power number, which I was a little surprised to see, just slightly above Fierceness. So if you're a Prime Power handicapper, just throwing that out there as well. But James, I'll go to you. Let's talk about that horse that beat Just a Touch in the Bluegrass.
Yeah, well, I do like the Just a Touch pick. I think he's going to move forward off that Bluegrass. But my top pick is number 2, Sierra Leone in the Kentucky Derby. And they ran 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of this opening weekend at Keeneland. And there wasn't one horse that could close wide that won on the main track, with the exception of Sierra Leone. He not overcame, I thought, a real biased track that day, but I thought he took a big step forward off of the Risen Star effort, where he got up, in the final jumps to prevail on a sloppy track. And I just love the way forward in both starts this year with blinkers. I think the Kentucky Derby's won on the far turn, so I look for him to be in full flight and have the front runners in touch when he straightens into the stretch and just go blowing by him. But I do think Just a Touch is going to run a huge race, hit the board. I think the Bluegrass was the best final prep for the Kentucky Derby, and I look for the top two out of that race to run well in the 150th running on the Kentucky Derby on Saturday.
I'm right there with you. Sierra Leone is my pick too. I can't back off of him. I've been backing him for a while now, but you're not going to get a great price. As you can see, 3-1, and we might get something potentially even shorter because I think people might back off of Fierceness, who is the morning line favorite. I also have a long shot here with Honor Marie, who finished second to Catching Freedom in the Louisiana Derby, closed late, has 2 wins at Churchill as well, and kind of a dark horse here. Trainer Whit Beckman, first Derby starter. So we'll see what happens there with Honor Marie as a closer. Also wanted to throw this out here. Now, I was looking at the program today, and I kind of had this weird feeling about a huge long shot. Maybe there's nothing there, but I'm curious if anyone has any thoughts on Society Man, who's going to have Frankie Dettori aboard, who came over to the U.S. with one mission in mind, to win the Kentucky Derby. And Society Man is an interesting closer as well from Post 20, who has 2 winners from just 18 starters in the Kentucky Derby. Anyone think that 50-1 shot has any chance here with Frankie Dettori? Anybody?
I think the Wood Memorial was a weak prep. I mean, if I don't like Resilience, it's hard for me to like Society Man. So Honor Marie is, by the way, the wise guy horse because he's been working extremely well and seems to be all the rage on the backstretch. And by the way, you could watch those workouts of Honor Marie and every other horse that's training up to the Derby on our Edge channel through TwinSpires. You see that contender workout graphic there. But the one thing about Honor Marie, and I want to like him, I don't understand why he's supposed to be better than Catching Freedom. You know, he had just as good a trip as Catching Freedom. Catching Freedom had far more acceleration and turn of foot on the turn, and they both ran on, but Catching Freedom ran by him. So I'm not really sure why Honor Marie is supposed to be better than Catching Freedom, and I don't really love Catching Freedom either, but a lot of people seem to like him. So I guess we'll see who's right about that.
Yeah, they both have wins
I think
at Churchill too,
ran
but
much better. I think Catching Freedom was ahead of the game, though, this year compared to Honor Marie. I mean, I don't think Honor Marie got much out of the Risen Star. He's had one good race. He's got a chance to take a significant step forward off of it. I don't know how much of a forward move Catching Freedom can make in the Derby. As far as the Society Man, I was dubious that would. I do think Resilience has got a chance to at least hit the board. Difficult to work out a trip from Post 20, but he's trained well at Churchill. I liked his breeze with Dornick the other day, and if anybody, if he could get out there, he could theoretically work out a trip where he outperforms his odds. If he could work out a trip from the outside, because I do think he's going to be forward a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to see Society Man show some speed from the outside off of that 46 and change drill in preparation.
I was going to be all over Resilience too if John Velasquez had stayed on the mount, but getting a new rider, I don't love that angle. But I actually really liked Resilience, had a huge % speed figure last out. So now shying away from it, like I said, getting a new rider. Not that there's anything wrong with his new rider. It's just John Velasquez has a lot of wins in the Derby. So got to feel good when you have him. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for the jury, for our grand jury today. Thanks for joining us, Nick. Thanks for joining us, Darin, who is in Louisville this week. James is in Louisville as well. So I'll see you all at the track. Happy Derby week, everyone. And head to TwinSpires, as always, to bet the Derby. Check out those promos. Watch our workout videos on YouTube. And we'll see you next time.